gone up to heaven, where they'll rest with God above. There they'll meet with friends and loved ones and share with all their precious love. There's a little lonesome graveyard on these tombstones, it did say, on brothers gone but not forgotten, on debts we'll meet again someday.
Whoop FM is a nonprofit community radio station that is made possible by generous donations from individuals and the following sponsors.
Are you looking for the best beer and cigarette prices in Bradley County? Well, look no further than Tom's Fuel Mart. That's right, look for the red and yellow signs. 25 feet from the street, 4 locations in Cleveland to serve you. At Tom's Fuel Mart number 4, that's right there near the Cleveland Speedway. You get the best homemade biscuits, sandwiches, and that includes the best fried bologna sandwiches in town. Just ask the Matador. That's right, Tom's Fuel and Mart, where you can find 100% gasoline. That means no ethanol, folks, for your lawnmowers and small engines. Do it. With locations on South Lee Highway, Wildwood, and North Ocoee, Tom's Fuel Mart, with the red and yellow sign 25 feet from the street, is ready to serve you. Yee-haw!
Train Endurance engineers stop at nothing to push our products to the brink. They put our heating and cooling units up against everything, from flamethrowers.
Safety control, better move that. Tanker truck.
To ultra-high pressure fire hoses.
It's like 10 years of power washing all at once.
Point is, they've devised countless ways to push train systems to the limit. Even catapults. Yes, catapults.
This is the perfect time to get your heating equipment serviced. Maximum capacity and efficiency can be maintained if your system is in good operating order. Call Mechanical Systems today to get $20 off of your heating equipment inspection and service. We also design and sell new high-efficiency systems, and changeouts are our specialty. Mechanical Systems has been providing high-quality service and installations for over 30 years. 336-5739. That same number is good for 24/7 emergency repairs. That's 423-336-5739.
It's hard to stop a train. Really hard.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it on north of here in the shopping mall.
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You also have an iPhone app if you go to our website and download that. And today, and our phone number, I'll remember what I'm talking about here in a minute. This is Saturday, I believe. You can call us here at 614-5553. Davey, get me out of this.
Help me. September the 28th. He was just turned around staring at me with this blank look in his eyes. Today's September the 28th, and we're going to be talking about growing up in the country, and we might talk a little bit, too, about Why Things Got Its Name. We did that show a couple weeks ago, and we got about a fourth of the way through our list of things that we wanted to talk about. We were going to have a nice young lady with us today named Hazel Taylor, and she's a little under the weather. And Miss Hazel, I understand, makes the best apple fritters around. So I'm expecting a few of those the next time she comes to see us. And we're going to reschedule her for the end of November, which is where we're up to now in scheduling.
Yeah, great list.
But she sent her little nephew to help us. So P-Dab's here today.
Well, great. P-Dab, good to see you here.
Good morning, everyone.
Well,
Glad to be here.
And before we go on, something that we must say is Deb had a birthday yesterday, and she is older.
39 again.
Ooh, doggies.
39 to what power?
I said I'm not getting older. I'm just collecting years.
Well, see, I could tell them how old I am and tell them that you're 2 years younger than me. I'm 50.
Yeah.
Me and Ron are collecting dust.
Yeah,
right.
there you go. There you go. But I did have a good birthday and lots of birthday wishes.
So happy birthday!
We're going to have our
Deb.
kids over at lunch today to celebrate a little bit more.
Well, that's great. And
so that means I got to go out to dinner on Thursday night, and then we went back to Stadium Barbecue last night with part of the family for my birthday, and then I get birthday. So that's 3 birthday lunches.
Yeah.
So I think
well, see,
that's enough.
That I always was confused whether it was the 26th or 27th, 28th. I just do every day, you know.
Yeah.
It was always confused. My dad was born on September 26th, and Deb was on the 27th, and I always used to get those two confused. So Deb said I owed her 2 gifts.
Yeah.
That's the way that works.
That's about like it is in October around their house.
There's something every day.
There's about 10 of us born in the month of October, so we usually plan a big party around the middle or the last of October, and everybody gathers in. And they've got to where they gather in at my house now, since rest of them don't have anywhere else to go. It's just common that they come to my house, and so we're planning on one this toward the end of the month.
You know, John Cook had a large family. Had a total 8 siblings there. And when they got bigger, there was always that once a month they'd go to his mother's house, just had a birthday party because there was somebody in the family had a birthday
that day,
or just that month. He said, "Well, in October, everybody born in October, this is your birthday." And so that I want to tell you about some of the shows coming up real quick before we get into this. Next week we're going to talk about Buck's Pocket.
That's a good subject.
We have Kent Inslee coming on, and we're going to talk about down in the Sugar Creek, Buck's Pocket, and the area, the Valley View area that I grew up in. And we'll be talking about how the families got there, because there's a huge number of families down there that came right out of the Smoky Mountains right into Buck's Pocket.
My family's from in that area, the Joseph Epperson.
We'll be talking about the churches and the cemeteries.
That's where the Lacey's are from.
Right. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Ida Lacey's still down there. If
you get one of them, they could really tell you some stories about that area down in there. They're good people too.
And Miss McClure, I believe her name's. We've got some 90-year-old ladies down in there that I've asked to be on the show. Not this particular show, but I'm going to see if I can't get some of them to come in.
And then also on the 12th, the next week, we're going to talk about Couch's Barbecue.
Oh, that'd be good.
We got Ken and Kenny Steiner. Ken sort of turned it over to his son now, but they're coming in. Their family started the Couches in 1946. That was his aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're coming up, and, I know that there's a lot of people probably went to Couch's Barbecue. Now, if you get my newsletter, please remember I can't type worth a darn, and I didn't spell Couches right, but everybody got the idea. The week after that, the Museum Center has a brand new exhibit coming out, and it's called, Deb, do you remember the name of it?
Building Cleveland.
Building Cleveland. They've just done Cleveland Works, and they have a new exhibit coming out, and we're going to have them come in and talk about it. And I know they're talking about the Princess Theater and the Bohemia.
That's good.
The
Cherokee
Lincoln
Hotel
Theater.
and the Lincoln. We don't have any pictures of the Lincoln. When the Lincoln was on the other side of the underpass, I believe it was the Black movie theater. Do you remember that at all?
I don't remember. I've heard my dad talk about there where the bank is now down Cleveland. That
Yeah.
used to be the old Nickelodeon.
Yes, the Monique.
Monique.
Yeah.
And,
Now-
And see, they still have the projector.
The projector
there.
and the piano in there from the Bank
From
of
there.
Cleveland.
When that
so-
Bank of Cleveland started cleaning up, they were wise
found-
enough not to throw it out.
Yeah.
and we
Bobby
were,
Taylor said, "Ooh,
we also
a
talked about
treasure."
the Cherokee Hotel in the past year. Some people have told us they actually have the paintings that hung up in the Cherokee Hotel. There was 4 big Indian pictures there, and there's some of those, and maybe
My brother-in-law auctioned all that off, so whoever
Wow.
got it, I mean, they probably bought it at the
Well-
auction. My sister said that they were hanging in every hallway.
Mm-hmm.
See, it didn't have an elevator. You had to walk up steps, and at every landing there was a big painting, big picture.
Oh, so then there was several more than that.
we've,
4 then.
we've got a lead on a person who actually family worked at the Cherokee Hotel. Matter of fact, he said that he didn't know that everybody didn't eat off a plate or a spoon that had CH on it.
His mom.
But we
Well, and the other day when we went off the air, Joe Godfrey came in and he brought me 2 of those little guest soaps from the Cherokee Hotel that were really old.
yeah.
And that Cherokee Hotel, I mean, we're just rambling on right here. But,
Oh, that's okay. That's what we do.
We're talking about history. I can remember that Cherokee Hotel used to be an attraction.
It was.
I can remember there was a man he would travel through different towns, and he climbed that building outside without any safety harness, safety rope, and got up on the corner of the motel or the hotel and stood on his head. Now, I mean, he was a traveling entertainer.
Did you get arrested?
No, everybody, the streets were blocked off, and he was full.
Now, what year do you think that was, P.D.?
That had to be in 45, 47, somewhere late 40s, somewhere like that. Because we were going to church over at there where Jefferson Furniture is now. That used to be a church, and M.E. Littlefield was the pastor there, and we would walk up maybe before service or something, just go uptown and browse around till they send somebody after us to say you're supposed to be in church. But anyway, they were having this event, and we stood there and watched that man climb the outside of that building. He climbed on the corner all the way up, and when he got up there, he stood on his head.
That is amazing. Well, going back
If
to
I stand on my head on the ground, I'm in trouble.
I do well to stand on my feet.
That's
Yeah.
right.
The Cherokee was such an interesting place, and the Chamber of Commerce began that because they knew that it would attract people to Cleveland, and they knew that it would
1925
or
right.
so. There was just a big push, and then some local businessmen that knew the way around knew that they needed something like that, and so the Chamber of Commerce and the leaders in the community built that hotel, and it was the pride of the South.
We're really looking for interior pictures of the Cherokee Hotel, which I've never seen an interior.
And the
pic-
museum needs them now.
Yeah, and to put this exhibit together, I know Eddie Cartwright had his wedding reception there in the Cherokee Hotel, and the banquet room was a big fan. Was it the Cherokee Room, or was it that?
Mhm.
What's the name of it?
It's
I believe CLE or BAC actually started broadcasting from there.
I believe it was BAC.
BAC, I guess.
Yeah. So,
They were upstairs in the hotel there.
right. And then after the Museum Center on October 26th, we got Chatta Valley, Chattata, or Shady, or however
If you-
anybody wants to say it.
Jack Sanders is coming on again, and you
And,
guys wait till Jack gets into who lived in what house. Y'all are gonna love
And
it.
what's the big house up there I love? The Mead?
The Mead House.
The Mead House. Oh, it's a beautiful place.
M-E.
And then Able Hardware. You talked about where the Monique is. Able Hardware, I got my first Pee Wee Herman bicycle right at there and paid $1 a month for 2 or 3 months to get my bicycle.
And we haven't exactly confirmed that yet. It's dependent on somebody's work schedule, but I
Okay.
think it'll be in November sometime.
And then Cherokee Women, a lady has written a book. A nationally known author will be here in
Who
town.
grew up here in Cleveland, Carolyn Ross Johnston. She has written a book called Cherokee Voices. Last year, she wrote a book called My Father's War about World War II. And then she put out another Cherokee book about 5 or 6 years ago. So she's a nationally known author. She's going to be speaking at the she's going to be here on Saturday morning at the Historical Society on Sunday afternoon. Then she's going to Cherokee, North Carolina to present her findings for her book up there, which I think is really impressive.
And then after that, coming up later in November, one gentleman's kids are involved in sports on Saturday morning, and that will be over soon. But he is one of the major historians out of Chattanooga, and he's going to come tell us about underground Chattanooga. A lot of people don't know that if you go down down towards the Market Street, that a lot of those stores there, that's the second story is now where you're going in, and there's actually a whole underground area in Chattanooga. And there's actually still some areas that you can get down in there. I think some of the parking garages now are actually used to be the first floor of these houses. So he's written a book about it. And then we got Dr. Hood going to come in. Dr. Hood is an expert on Appalachian history and particularly Appalachian religion. And he had converted into the Holiness Church now, and which is Snake Island churches, and he's been a major author of Snake Island churches and religion through here. So we're going to come talk about how Appalachian and its religion changed in over the years. So I think that was interesting. So we got great things going. Man, we're booking into November and December.
That's
and,
good.
We'll go from not having anybody at all to having 8 weeks booked out. So that's if you know anybody that you think it would make a good show, and you'd be surprised what people want to hear.
Steve Bivens and his mom are going to come on too. She's in her 90s, but we haven't been able to work out a schedule because Steve has to go over to Nashville a lot.
All right, P-Deb, I just wanted to talk about, and bring back memories of some people, and some people who are younger may say that is that at night there was 2 ways to go to the bathroom when you lived out in the country. What were they?
Well, it depends.
Maybe 3.
It depends on what you had to do. If a lot of people just went to the back porch, and that's as far as they got. And so it was dark. They couldn't anybody see, and there wasn't that much traffic on the roads. And if it was probably somebody walking.
Sometimes there wasn't a road right there.
There wasn't a road right close by anyway. But the men would always go to the outdoor privy, carry the lamp with them, and if it's like my daddy was always afraid of the dark. He kind of afraid, and he'd make my mother carry the lamp with him to the bathroom, to the toilet. They'd have to carry the lamp, and so and the women most time they used a chamber pot, what they called, and they'd slide that on the bed, and they was a lot of ways. Being in the antique business, you run across all different kinds, shapes, and sizes, and the more fancy ones was the glass, the porcelain type things, and had a lid on it and everything. And
there were actually chairs.
Yeah, and that was the first thing you did of a morning was you went to the outdoor privy and you emptied the chamber and cleaned it up and brought it back for the next night. And
I actually remember my grandmother down in Tinga, Georgia. Although time that I was old enough, they had built an addition onto the back of the house and had put in a indoor fancy toilet, as my grandpa called it, But right up behind, up by the his workshop was still was a outhouse, and my grandmother still used that pot. I remember it being under the bed the times they've been there. So, and I always thought that was just really cool, but. Now I don't.
Well, matter of fact, my wife has still got her grandmother's porcelain chamber. That's it's just a decoration piece, and that's so. That's
see, that was
you had 3 ways of going. You could go to the woods, or you could go to the privy. You could go to the outhouse, or you could use the chamber in the bedroom.
Going to the outhouse, what was some of the problems you had when you were out in the outhouse?
Spiders.
Yeah. And the smell. And the smell. In the summertime it was really bad. And
for all you people eating breakfast.
Yeah. If you're not eating breakfast, just don't worry about it. But anyway, we used to put lime that would kind of neutralize the waste, and it would kind of take away the scent and stuff.
Now, something I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. You know, I was a suburban kid. You know, I had an uncle that ran a little farm. I had my grandfather lived in Tinga, Georgia, which is still in the country today, you know, but they did have electricity, and he had TV and watched wrestling. So, but when did you move the outhouse, and who dug the hole, and what did you do with the old hole?
Well,
I mean,
I don't know.
Well, you didn't move it too far.
Uh-huh.
You would maybe move it 6 or 8 feet. Well, the dirt you got out of that hole filled this hole up.
Okay.
And you moved it right over the hole. And
you just dug it with shovels?
Yeah, pick and shovel. Yeah, it was. They had no backhoe back then, and you didn't dig it all that deep. You dig it about 3.5 feet deep, and about maybe 4 foot square, and you could tell the people it was uppity up. They had what they call a 2-hole.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they would be his and hers maybe.
Yeah.
And,
but that wasn't a 2-story, was it?
No. It was just a 2-hole. You know, and so you know it. You really didn't have a lot of privacy when you went like you do now. You know, you go in a little stall, but back then it was wide open.
There's a double outhouse still standing behind Red Hill United Methodist Church down on Red Hill Road. It's locked up, of course, and they don't use it anymore, but they did retain the building, and it's kind of fun to go see it, and it says women on one side and men on the other.
Yeah, and the schools also had the same thing. Moore's School, I can remember. Now, I went to Prospect, and we were the more modern school. We had indoor plumbing and everything. I guess that's the first time I ever seen and used an indoor. Was when I went to school. But I would visit my cousins down to Moore's, and they had a girls' and a boys' bathroom, and they weren't 1 or 2. They were 5 or 6 long. They were a building, and so
just open.
It was just they just went inside, and that was it. And so it was a piece of work back then. And they've matter of fact, Lehman Farm out on Michigan Avenue Road out there, when he operates his farm out there, produce farm, he's got an outside privy that's anybody comes in and they want to go to the restroom.
There it is.
Right there it is. They say, "You're kidding." No, that's it. You're on the farm now.
You're on the farm now.
And it's nice. I mean, it's nothing.
Ron, speaking of Tinga, reminded me, folks, you need to go down. There's a new little cafe in Tinga called the 411 Cafe. It is nothing fancy, but I understand that when you order French fries, they chunk up a whole potato and they cook it right there on the spot, and they supposed to have really great hamburgers.
Now, which building? There are not many buildings in Tinga,
well,
so you
it's
can't.
the one. Do you remember the one that says this property's for sale? Call Bob.
Call Bob. Yes.
That's what. The no phone number or anything. It says this property for sale or lease. Call Bob. And I had to stop, turn around, and go back and take a picture of the sign. I said, "Well,
if you lived in Tinga,
everybody
only so
knew Bob
there."
Yeah.
And it's right in there somewhere. And like I say, they've taken an old convenience store and they've put a little restaurant in there, and it's nothing fancy smancy. But the reports I'm getting on a Facebook page that I'm on from Tinga is they're really excited about having them there.
Well,
also, tomorrow in Charleston, you'll have the opportunity to meet the president of the National Trail of Tears, Jack Baker, at the Hiwassee Center, which is the old bank there in Charleston. At 2:00, they're going to meet there for a few minutes, and Mr. Baker's going to speak for a few minutes. Very nice Cherokee man.
Yes.
And when the meeting's over, we're going to drive over to Bob and Nancy Irwin's house on Walker Valley Road. And that house was built in the 1830s. And it looks like Southern living. So if you love to see old houses, that's all free, and the public's invited.
There's white vinyl around the old cabin now and everything, so people go, that didn't look like anything. But, yeah, the house itself, they've built around in the house.
That's some of my complaint about the National Registry of Historic Places. I don't care what happened there. If they have vinyl on the outside of the building, they will turn it down.
Yeah.
But to me, when you put that vinyl on it, you save what's original underneath there, because it would not be. Now, let me ask you a question. Out in the Prospect community, there was a gentleman that made furniture.
Seaton, Doyle Seaton.
Talk about Seaton's.
Doyle Seaton would, matter of fact, his shop still stands. They auctioned his place off about 10 years ago, and it took him about 15 years to complete his house. He built the basement, and he hand-built the house that still stands, and all the trim work in it, everything. I mean, it's
before
beautiful.
your house or after your house?
That's right there in Prospect. It's right on the left. Right after you pass Prospect Grocery, it's really the first big house on the.
Okay, it's a bigger house, kind of sitting
house.
off the road a little bit. I remember when they sold it.
He made all the trim work, everything, door facings, made all the doors and everything in that. He was a true craftsman. He could build anything, and the thing about he made a lot of his own tools to do that with. If he seen something that he wanted to make a piece like, he would figure out a tool and have it made and make it himself and put it on his machine, and that would make the own finish rails, hand rails, spindles. He'd done everything. Every piece in there is handmade.
Now, wasn't his chair? They were all wooden chairs, right?
Everything was wood.
Yeah.
Well,
mahogany.
Someone
Mahogany
was talking about the furniture that he sold to the public. Are you aware of that at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. He would. He's had such a backlog that it would take 6 to 8 months to get a piece from him. If you just wanted a chair, all you had to do is take a picture of it, and he'd take it to him, and he would build it just exactly like that. And he would always. He was always looking for the right lumber, the right kind of material to work with.
Where did he learn to do all this, do you think?
I think he just learned it on his own, just picked it up. That's all he ever done was...
it's just like some guy can sit down and pick up a guitar, and next thing you know, he's there. And some people can put things together and can paint. I can't paint a wall, much less a picture.
It's just like carving, with a knife. Some people can do stuff that...
Oh, yeah.
And I can't hardly whittle.
Yeah, you had a student there, Deb, that does a lot of wood carvings with
Michael
chainsaws.
Graham.
With chainsaws and things.
It's just practice and having the knowledge of.
Some people see things. Speaking about wood, up on the screen here, if you got the internet on, there's a stack of wood there. That's a picture of a wood shed. Did you ever have to do any of that?
We've cleared acres and acres of wood. We used to have to cut wood we heated chicken houses with big 10,000 number of chicken houses with wood. But that was one thing I was going to talk about. We always had to go to the wood pile and gather up, Mother'd call them wood chips. It would be the bark off of the thing. That's what she used in the morning to build a fire with, to cook breakfast with. And we always had maybe 2 stacks of wood. We had the wood chips, and that would start the fire, and then we'd have a little 2 or 3 pieces of kindling wood, real dry pine, heart pine, that would get it going. And then she would throw in 2 or 3 bigger sticks of wood, real good oak or hickory. But if she wanted a real quick fire, she would take pine. Pine would really get a real quick hot fire.
Yeah.
And that way she could cook them homegrown biscuits. So, boy, I'm telling you what.
After you burn a bunch of pine, though, you have to clean up that stove good. All that, what do you call, I guess? Resin, yeah. Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Mr. Ron. How you doing?
Hey, Bullet. How are you?
Pretty good. Been under the weather a little bit.
Well, I seen Paul last night up at Bradley High School, and I was asking where you was, and he said you were being lazy.
Yeah, he told me that he saw you. I was just going to call in and say I was going to talk to Miss Hazel. I'm going to miss her. I used to be her neighbor about 6 years. She's a nice lady.
Yes, and I hear she makes good pies, but that's a challenge.
Yeah.
She's going to have to prove it to me.
Yeah.
Well, but like I say, maybe I think he's scheduled for a later date. And you was talking about them outside bathrooms.
Yeah.
When I lived over East Cleveland School back in the 50s, I got a surprise when I come out of mine. My brother broke a ball on my head.
Well, what had you done to Paul?
I don't know, but they had to take me to Specs Hospital, and I had to have 8 stitches put in my head.
I bet your dad had something to say about that.
Well, I don't remember, but it was back there.
He just got hit in the head with the bottle. He don't remember.
About 5 or 6 years old.
Oh.
He's out there waiting on me.
Ambushed at the outhouse.
That's what brothers are good for.
I was going to say, Ron, tell Brett not to pick Cleveland no more. I think he jinxed us.
Well, unfortunately, I have to admit that I got all those picks right last night. I picked Bradley. I thought Bradley had an outside chance to win if their passing game got going, and Signal Mountain made a couple of big mistakes, and Bradley capitalized on them. Cleveland just shot themselves early in the game, got behind 28-0, I believe, early, and just couldn't dig out of that hole. And Knox West is a very good football team, though. And Polk County's playing great football, and Walker Valley now is 2 weeks, can't get their offense. They only had 1 first down last night. So Walker Valley's got a week off, and I guess they'll heal up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then go play Ooltewah or East Hamilton, I think, so that it don't get any easier when they get back.
I heard two Cleveland players. One of them may have had a concussion, and one of them was coughing up blood. I don't know what happened to them.
Well, let's hope that everybody's okay. Now, they had some injuries going into that game, too. I think there's a couple of players that's a little banged up. So, but Cleveland doesn't get any time off either. I forget who they play this week, but it's pretty tough.
East Hamilton.
East Hamilton's it will be a big challenge for them.
I just want to say that you got a good guest in there. Pete Dabb is very knowledgeable, and he's a good guy.
Well, you're the first one. We had 3 or 4 people told us just the opposite this morning at breakfast, but,
Ron told him we hadn't heard half of P. Dabb's lies.
I tell you what, P. Dabb's a good guy.
He is.
And anyway, it's good talking.
Thank you.
You come by, Robert, and I'll pay you just as quick as I get my check in this month. I'll send you a little check there.
For
okay.
Saying that he's nice. Bye-bye. We wanted to remind the folks while we're in between things here that Shane Lowe plays live music out here in the mall on Thursday evenings, and JoJo Collins is out there on Wednesday evenings. And there's alpacas up on North Lee Highways having an open house today from 10 to 5, and tomorrow from noon to 5. And folks can go by and see the alpaca farm, and it's on North Lee Highway, close to Anatole. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hello, Ron and Debbie.
Hey, Miss Ella. How are you?
Ella.
I'm fine.
What's going on?
I heard you talking about the old toilets.
Well, did you ever use one of them?
Lord, yeah. And I hated it at night. We had to go down them steps, and I was always afraid somebody would grab my legs because you could put your hands to those steps, And I was afraid to go down there. Half the time I didn't go down there. And that old house is still standing, but my mom had a bathroom put in there.
Well, so now, did you run any spiders in the outhouse?
Well, I don't know if I did or not because I can't remember myself.
I think I would remember the spider.
Or some things you want to forget.
Whew. I just always thought you just didn't know what was on the other side of that hole. That's what I always thought.
Well, and flies too. You had to fight the flies away.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the most sanitary thing in the world, but it's
what's better than doing it in the house, though.
That's right. I can remember my uncle whenever they first got a bathroom in. He sat over in the corner just mattering a mashed cat. He said, "I just can't believe anybody would use the bathroom in the house. I just can't believe it." Said wasn't made to do that.
I can remember when we had those little parties in our rooms too.
Yeah.
Hey, I called you on the TV last time, but you wasn't there.
I was there. I just wasn't on the set right at that moment. I was over in the back. I heard you call. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, Marcel, you going to Pokey's tonight?
No, I can't go till I get my check.
Okay.
Well, that'll be next week, so
That's coming up.
I don't know, Miss L. They may put a freeze on our check.
I know it, and I was hoping to get it today so I could not, but I guess not.
Yeah, well.
All righty. Well, thanks,
all right,
Miss Ella.
Ella. We'll see you.
One more thing, and I'll quit interrupting. Valley View School and Black Fox School both are having their fall festivals tonight. If you're looking for something family-oriented to do tonight, going out and see the folks down at Valley View and at
There's
Black
a
Fox.
lot going on. I want to go see Jack Baker tomorrow. That's good. Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning. I heard you mention the guy that had the wood shop out there.
Yes, the Seatons.
That wood shop, it was very impressive.
Yeah, he.
What's neat, and I wanted to tell you about, is I visited with Hayes Cole, and somebody had come to him with an old wooden wagon wheel, and they wanted it rebuilt. It was broken, so he turned to that guy at the wood shop to cut out the curved arches to make a wheel, you know. And we went out there to pick those up, and we came back to Hayes Cole's blacksmith shop, and he heated up a steel band and made it expand, and he had it all set out and laid out there in the gravel. And he just set that steel band down over that and then poured cold water on it and smokes just flying and steam. And that steel band just shrunk up and squeezed all those wood parts together. And you had a big round wheel when he got done. Old Hayes Cole knew what he's doing, and that guy in that wood shop knew what he's doing. I really enjoyed seeing all that.
That would have been great to see.
It would have.
Yeah. And that wood shop, he had an exhaust system to every machine. All the sawdust was sucked right up and went out to a big exhaust sawdust pile out back. I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, he was a real craftsman. That Doyle Seaton was. Well, his son was too. Followed on through, and they, like I said, they all the trim and woodwork in that house, all the cabinets and everything, are all handmade. And
even the floor is like parquet, oak, and cherry and walnut. And he made every little block of wood and put in there and sanded it all down and made it look like a parquet floor. And I thought that was just the most.
It sure did. Yeah.
I believe that was in Southern Living or some major magazine. I went out there with an interior designer, and she was telling me all about it and stuff. And I believe she said it was in some big magazine. But anyway, he was very impressive, and I really enjoyed meeting him. Of course, Hayes Cole's my favorite person to grow up and hang out with. But anyway, I'm enjoying the show, and congratulations to Polk County and Bradley BCHS. I was real impressed with them beating Signal Mountain.
Yeah, that was tough. Hey, Doug, how did you like the polo matches last week?
Oh, it's fantastic. I love it. And all the pretty women down there, I love that too.
Well, I thought that's probably what the main reason you were there. Then the horses come second.
That's right.
All right.
Well, I'm enjoying this show, and I'm going to hang up and let you carry on. We got to have Brett call in here.
Yeah, sure will.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Pete, have you been to the polo matches before?
I didn't get to go.
You've never been?
I've never been.
Well, Ron had never been, and he
goodness.
was kind of like, well, okay. But he really enjoyed it when he got there.
It's an amazing
The horses
event.
get right side by side, and they're probably running 35 miles an hour.
It's, there are people dressed in different ways, from the fanciest to the normal, and people having picnics, and it was really a lot of fun. Hey, good morning. You live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron.
Hey, Bernice.
How y'all doing?
We're doing
good.
great.
What you got for sale today?
Oh, he's got purple hull peas. He's got cucumbers. He's got squash. He's got tomatoes. He's got a bunch of stuff.
Well, it sounds good.
He'll be married 36 years come Monday.
Well, congratulations.
And they said it'd never last.
And
Yeah, they did.
you just couldn't wait till October, could you?
I got to keep her.
Yeah, had to do it in September, the last day of September. Couldn't wait one more day.
I've got to keep her.
Oh, well, that's good.
I've got to keep her.
So that's good. And tell us where he is today.
Ask Pete Dab if what we used in the toilet outside to wipe on.
You tell us, Bernice.
It's a Sears and Roebuck catalog.
Do what?
Sears Roebuck catalog.
That's it.
Well, now let me ask you a question, then, because I never got to use a outdoor toilet and everything, and I think of Sears catalog, and them pages are slick in the new.
Well, they didn't used to be that way.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, because them slick pages, I was going, I don't know how that worked.
No, it was just like a newspaper.
Well, you had to wipe with it anyway.
That's all you had.
What about corn cobs? I always heard people use corn cobs.
Oh, yeah.
I never did use a corn cob, but I've been in the toilets where the snakes at.
Well, that'd be one wet snake.
Yeah, there's a wet barnyard. I went out the barnyard with the clothes on. My mother was in the toilet one time, an old outside toilet, and my daddy was going to shoot at that rabbit. He shot right through the toilet and just missed my mama. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You're talking about, I mean, she got pretty rank there, but that's, you're talking about
it's just
using the
normal.
corn cob. You know, the old tale is you go in some privies and there's two corn cobs hanging there, a red one and a white one. Well, they say, what's the two colored one? Well, you use the red one first, and then you use the white one to make sure you got clean.
Oh, God. Good morning, I'm in Old Town Cleveland.
You asked for this.
I was going to tell you, P-Dab, you ain't got nothing on me. I was raised back in them Georgia mountains, and we had outhouses from a time till I was married.
Hey, my wife had never seen one.
Well, I had never seen an inside bathroom till I was about 19 years old.
And she had never used one, and she didn't even know where the handle was to flush it with whenever she got done.
Well, what we always looked out for when we went was snakes.
Yeah, it was that, but you know, most of the time they wasn't poisonous or anything. They were just something that was
poison.
I don't care what they are. It's no business there.
Snakes and cottonmouth.
Well, you know, if I'm going to the toilet and I've got my pants down, the last thing I want to see is a snake.
Right.
Check it out before you go in it. And as for that wood, cutting wood, I still burn wood.
Yeah, there's a lot of people still burns it, but it's a whole lot easier to come by now than it was back then. We used a crosscut saw and an axe, wedges, and hammers to bust it with. But if we'd always order a load of slabs from a sawmill, and we'd pay about $3. Somebody would bring us a big load of slabs, and that's what we would cut up for kindling wood. And we'd have to bust it up in little, maybe 2-3 inch wide pieces, and it couldn't be over, a foot long.
Been there and done that for the wood stove.
And we did that for the wood stove, and what you done was you would bring it in of a night, and you would always try to keep enough in the wood box to keep it dry.
Right.
And if it rained on it, well, you was in a heap of trouble. You just about went hungry the next day because you didn't have anything to build a fire with. And so, I mean, it was a chore just to make ends meet and to feed the family with a wood box and a fire.
Did you ever use coal, or was just coal not available to you?
It was available, but it was that was just another expense, and you just didn't have the money to buy it with.
It wasn't available to us.
And a lot of it wasn't available, and if you bought it, you bought it by the bag, maybe 25 cents a bag, or 50 cents a bag.
Would you just use it to start fires with too?
If it was real cold, you used that to heat with. You didn't use it to cook with.
No, you wouldn't want it, because of the oil.
It could make a heater turn red, couldn't it?
Oh yeah, you could make that. You could make it get up and dance all over the floor with that coal, and I was always proud when Daddy would bring a bag or two home, and I didn't have to carry wood that night.
Yeah, now when I was growing up, my dad always wanted, in our house where I live now, we had a wood stove downstairs, and my dad basically called me Get Wood.
Yeah.
Get Wood. That's what your name was.
That's right.
Get wood.
Get wood.
That or damn it. I don't know which one was.
Okay.
We always went to the chair factories and got those little ends.
Oh, yeah. Well, my dad worked at the chair factory, so he brought a truckload home with him.
So you brought home a big...
That was always good to, you always look for a easier way, and a better way. And that wood chair factory wood was always dry, and it would create a good fire, and you wanted it to probably go out after 9 o'clock in the morning, or in the afternoon,
because of the heat
of the day. And
well, the kitchen was always towards the back of the house.
Toward the back of the house, and the kitchen always had a door on it. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, had a door on it. You would close that door to keep the heat from coming in the summertime into the other part of the house. Of course, you didn't have a whole lot of the house to heat or cool. Most of the time, it was a 2 or 3 room house.
I've got a 6-room house, P-Dab, and I heat it with a big cast iron heater.
And
cheaper, isn't it? Cheaper, isn't it?
It's a lot cheaper.
Yep. In your living room, bedroom, and
dining room
was all one room.
Mm-hmm.
And then the most of the time the parents and the smaller kids, they had a room to themselves, like and we didn't sleep single. We piled up. We split toe to head
like a bunch of puppies.
It was foot to head is what we slept. You know, you heard those songs, sleeping at the foot of the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we've done that. And you had one light in the middle of the room, and you had a chain on it, and most of the time you would run your cord over to the bedpost, and when you got in bed, you'd pull that chain and cut the light out.
Thanks, Red. Thanks.
Deb, you live down on the farm. I mean,
Well, I was going to say during the blackouts during World War II, I asked my dad about that one time, and he was living out in the country at the time, and he said, "Lord, we didn't have to turn the lights out. We didn't have any to turn out.
Didn't have any. No.
It was you know, all you had is lantern stuff.
so now
Well, we live.
you'd spend all summer cutting wood and burning it all winter then.
Right,
And
pretty
did-
much. Yeah,
yeah.
You tried to accumulate enough wood to do you all winter.
See, now I had a little experience like because my dad wanted to do that, and somebody would need some land cleared, and so here I'd go out and I learned how to cut trees and and that's why I never wanted to do it again. Really, you know.
Yeah.
Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, it's Lisa Poja.
Hey, Lisa, what's up?
Well, I had a couple things I wanted to talk about, but when you were talking about the outhouses, I just had to let everybody know I ran across a blog from a lady who lives out in the Northwest recently, and she did a blog where they had spent a very extensive amount of time comparing the best materials to wipe with out in the woods. And they determined that smooth stones worked best. And she actually has a basket of smooth stones in her bathroom now with a basket for used and fresh.
Oh my goodness.
So
I wish you could see the look on Ron's face right now. He's thinking he wants to say something, but he knows he shouldn't.
Well, you know, I'm gonna if
Left no stone unturned.
I was gonna say smooth or rough stone. I would go with a smooth stone.
I would too. I would go with a smooth river rock.
I wish I remember the name of the blog, but they had tested leaves, corn cobs, all kinds of things, and they had rated them on like 4 or 5 different categories, and some materials were very good at cleaning but didn't feel so good versus some felt bad. It was disgusting but fascinating at the same time. So,
You're sick.
So
And I was worried about this program where it was going today.
No, we're going right down the toilet.
Well, the other thing I wanted to talk about, if I had the time and the space and the money, I would get an old wringer washer and set it up at my laundromat. And when people come in and complain about how hard it is to do laundry, I would send them to that room and make them use the wringer washer to do their laundry and not use.
Oh, I spent many a day standing there with my mom going, "Don't touch that. Don't put your fingers in there."
I have got my hand caught in a ringer before.
It'll bite you.
You know, Earl and Ella Hahn, who owned Lehigh Motel, they practically raised my mother, so I was down there at the motel a lot, and I remember the wringer washers. And that was always my fear, that if I got close to it, it would kind of reach out and grab me and hurt my fingers.
It basically would reach out and grab you. You've got that sleeve in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're just feeding that towel through there or something.
I wasn't even doing that. I was just walking through the laundry room, and I was afraid it would. I guess my mother did a very good job of instilling, a fear of things that could happen to me and the concern to be safe around.
I just remember, my mom had a wash day. And that poor woman spent all day hanging out and washing and wringing, and she'd roll those blue jeans up for some reason. Still don't know why, and put them down in the bottom of the refrigerator. And then the next day she'd pull them out and she'd put them on the jean stretchers. Remember jean stretchers? Mm-hmm. And then she might iron, so it was a 2 or 3 day process, but it was just hard labor.
Put them in the refrigerator was to keep them damp,
so that you could iron them or do something else with them the next day.
Keep them from shrinking?
Well, that was to keep them damp until you got to either iron them or stretch them or something.
Well, one thing, they didn't have that many stretchers, and they would stretch what they could today, and then tomorrow they would be still damp from the refrigerator to swap them out.
Have you seen pants stretchers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got some in the shop.
I've seen a pants stretcher, so but they they couldn't all get it all done in one day.
Right. That's the reason they kept them cool. They kept them in the refrigerator so they'd stay damp, and they could swap them out, the dry ones to the damp ones.
And now I have to listen to people gripe about how awful it is that it takes them an hour and a half to do their laundry.
Yeah.
So.
And then people complain about it take a minute and a half to get their hamburger down at Central Park, right?
Yes.
God,
we live in a fast world.
Yeah, I used to give some presentations, and I talk about it's sort of things have changed a lot. Is that now you put a bag of popcorn in a microwave and you sit there and pat your foot for 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Oh my gosh, it's taking 2 minutes to get the popcorn, and I remember in the days where you got the oil and you shook it and you shook it and you finally get one to pop, and I thought Jiffy Pop was the greatest invention ever made.
I never could get it to look like
talking
a
about
commercial.
the wash day. That was the ladies. They had a special day during the week that was wash day. Well, the kids that were old enough and big enough to carry water, we had to carry water from a spring. We carried it in a water bucket, one bucket at a time, till we filled up 3 tubs and the washing machine. And
that's why you had lots of kids.
We had a wash pot. That's what they call them, wash pots. And they would build a fire in that wash pot, fill that wash pot full, and you boil that water. And that's how if your clothes were real dirty, and you put them in that wash pot, and you chugged them up and down until you got them thing, and then you put them in. If you had lucky enough to have a wash machine, you put them in the wash machine and agitate them for a couple of 3 minutes, and then you run them through a couple of rinse cycles, and then you had a big long. You could tell when wash day was because everybody had it hanging on the line, and you didn't want to do it on a real windy day because, of course, you had the dust would cover your clothes. If you live close to a gravel road, you just about had to do a re-wash job because the dust would gather on your clothes and you'd have to rinse them off again. But and back then they didn't have paved roads or anything, and if you lived on a good busy road right there, the car would come by and you could see them coming for 3 miles for the dust they were stirring up, and that would just settle on their clothes and they'd go into fits.
Well, I remember too. It's raining. You'd have one of those late afternoon little showers that you have, and it'd be about the time of day that the clothes had just gotten dry, and everybody head outside lickety split.
Now, one thing that is not going to go away with laundry, and I've determined that, is soap powders. I still actually have young people come in and ask for soap powders, and I want to look at them. I say, well, there hasn't been any soap in any of this stuff since World War II, but I'll go out and see if I can make you up some lye soap in the back.
So it's just a detergent now.
Everything, actually, any product you buy, any cleansing product has not had what is technically soap in it since World War II. Everything went to a detergent based, and that is why we have all of these allergies and everything now, is because that stuff doesn't actually wash out of your clothes completely.
Yeah, I agree with that. And for a long time now, I'd say the last 20 years, I use dye-free, scent-free, everything free except the price, liquid detergent.
You've really just enlightened us here today, is that, the detergent's bad for me and Smooth Stones is the best toilet paper out there.
Okay, well, since we're on laundry, I will give you and your listeners another piece of information.
All right.
Do you know what fabric softener is? What it is made from?
No idea. Smooth Stones. Not Smooth Stones, I hope.
Lard.
Oh, so if I just put lard in with my wash, it'd be better?
That is essentially what you're doing. When you add liquid fabric softener, you are putting some dissolved scented lard into your clothes to make the fibers lay down and feel smoother.
Oh, I tell you, I remember cooking with lard. Did you ever have to pour the bacon grease into a can and keep it?
Oh, yeah.
No, but my husband's grandmother did that, and they would reuse it. And even for a while, my grandmother did, and reuse it until it was just unidentifiable.
my mom and dad did it. My dad.
Oh, that's what you did.
Yeah.
And boy, make stuff good.
Oh, yeah. Make some gravy now.
You saved that store-bought Crisco for important things.
Yeah.
This was my in-laws raised hogs, so they had an unending source. So I couldn't figure out why they kept reusing the same over and over when there was a whole lot more.
Because that's what their mama had done.
That's flavored.
Exactly. Well, I've taken up too much time today.
No.
But that does remind me of that little jar that used to sit around the kitchen that had the nasty grease stuff in it.
My good friend John Cook says when he teaches some classes to private investigators about how to do research, he says there is a internet site for about anything you can think of, and you just proved it today.
Okay, so, well, I'm going to get off here and head to Memphis.
Thanks, Lisa. It was
careful.
fun. Bye-bye. Drive carefully.
That's good. I put a picture up here now, and this is something that doesn't happen anymore. This is a family sitting around the dinner table.
Right.
And this doesn't happen. We'll talk about that after this call. Hey, good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
I hate it till I call back, but I forgot something.
Oh,
go ahead.
That happens when you get old.
Did you know who's going to play at the rock party this year?
No.
Convertible.
The Convertibles. All right.
Yeah, Pro Daddy.
Well, that's good.
But I wonder if anybody else is going to play. I guess they'll have more than one.
Yeah, I would think so.
I don't really know that, and I didn't know they were playing, so that's the first I'd heard.
He said it's been 9 years since they played up there. That's good. I love to hear the Convertible.
Well, now, my band played there many, many years ago, and I can't remember how long it's been. How's that?
It's
Yeah.
1991, I think.
Well, I'm
90.
80.
That's
Well,
first year.
Yeah.
I like
90.
to hear it, man.
Yep, we were legends in our own mind.
Yeah, okay. I just had to tell you that.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
We're getting some reports here that the archives from last week aren't opening. It just recycles and recycles when we try to click on it. And we will report that to the powers that be on Monday, and maybe they can get that fixed. Because I know a lot of people will listen to the racing history show
had some information
from last week.
He was full of it. I enjoyed that.
And I loved how you could talk with Miss Ella and all of our friends, too.
Really, and then we're going to get him back, and he's going to try to bring Charlie
Mincy,
who's one of the very first NASCAR drivers.
And moonshine runners.
He knew what he was talking about.
Good morning, folks. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron.
Hey, how you doing, Brenda?
I'm doing okay. I was gonna say something about cooking with that grease. My mother always kept the grease because my grandmother had always kept it.
Yep, that's why you kept it.
And she had a little thing on the stove, and it was I guess it was I don't know. It was some kind of a tin little can, and it had a little salt and pepper shaker to match it. And on the front of that can, it said grease.
That's right.
And she has brought me grease in the last little while because I had asked her for it. And sometimes when I'd need grease to make a little bit of gravy or something, I'd call her, and she's always had grease.
I wonder if women that age, like during World War II when things were so scarce, if you don't have some kind of cooking oil, it's really hard to cook.
Yeah.
And I would think that might have come from that day and time.
It's just flavor.
It is. It's flavor.
I mean, you cooked some ham with it, and you cooked some everything you cooked with it.
My wife still keeps bacon grease. She will fry bacon or a fat bag just for the grease to go in turnip greens, pintos, or something like that. And it just gives it flavor.
Now, we're not recommending this from being non-cholesterol or healthy. It just tastes good.
Now, I kept it whenever I cooked all the time, but I've got to where I don't do that anymore. But also the little chamber pots. I've got my great grandmother's chamber pot, and I think it's enamel.
Probably red and white.
That's what my grandmother was, red and white.
Black and white.
Mine was. My grandmother was red and white.
And me and my late husband bought a mobile home years ago, and when we moved in, we didn't get the water and everything hooked up right away, but we just went ahead and moved in, and I used that chamber pot. for, I don't know, it might have been 3 days, it could have been 4, but I sure was glad I had it.
I'm real glad you shared that with us.
I tell you, this program getting into some personal lives right here.
Oh, let me go. Let's segue away from this. Somebody here, and Brenda may can answer this too. They said, how long do you think you can keep that grease and still use it? I mean, it was just like the non-ending bowl. You never cleaned it. You just put more stuff in it.
You just recycled it more or less. Every morning you would save that. Well, for dinner you would use maybe what you salvaged. For you didn't keep more than your little container would hold.
It was we used just a tin can.
Yeah, you could use a tin can.
My mom used a tin can.
There was some kind of porcelain bowl of my mom's that just sat there unopened all the time.
You didn't keep any more than you could use, and because the next morning you was going to be able to replenish it, and that's what they would cook lunch and supper with would be to season they seasoned all their green beans, potatoes, or everything with that fat back grease.
Somebody online here is talking about heating it up and putting it over lettuce and making that fresh lettuce wilted.
Absolutely, that's the way you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had to heat it up because the top part turned white and was hard, and you had to dig down in to get the grease.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever eat hoe cakes?
I wish you could see Ron's face. Yes, I know what hoe cakes are. Ron had one last night, but he don't know it.
Well, I can remember my grandmother. She'd get up real early, and she'd fry eggs, and she'd make biscuits, and what she had left of the biscuits, she'd make hoe cakes for my grandmother.
Well, now tell me what you're calling a hoe cake.
Well,
look at Ron's face.
What my grandmother called hoe cakes was a great big whole biscuit that she would make. What was left out of the biscuits that she had cut for the family, she'd make a hoe cake and for my grandpa.
Well, when you say hoe cake to me, I'm thinking about fried bread that the soldiers during the Civil War would heat up their digging devices, be it a shovel or a hoe or whatever they had with them, and they would cook cornbread on it, and they called it a hoe cake.
Ah, well, that may be where she got that, because that's what she called them. If she made a great big biscuit,
yeah,
whole cake.
She was just taking the leftover biscuit mix and making something out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember that my mother. We were talking about the grease. She always kept it because my grandmother did. But now my father's mother, I don't remember her ever keeping grease. She was raised in town, and I don't know if that's why she didn't keep grease or not, but I don't remember her keeping grease like my other grandmother did.
Well, they were, it kind of got out of fashion when you got indoor plumbing and it'd stop everything up.
Yeah. I used to pour grease down the sink, and I learned what was causing my sink to stop.
Yeah.
Oh, and how long did it take you to figure that out?
It didn't take long.
All you had to do was pour some hot grease down in there, and it melted right away.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get off here. So
all righty, Brenda, thanks.
I'm enjoying it.
What was that meal you had last night at Stadium, Ron?
It was I had it was barbecue on a cornbread pancake. And
they called it piled on barbecue or something.
Boys are nice up there.
It looks good. Boy, those fried pies are something else.
Yeah. Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Well, good morning.
Hey, Marilyn.
Well, I had to call and say happy birthday to Daddy's baby.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, let me ask you this. How old does it make you feel? Because you remember when I came home from the hospital.
Well, Ron thought his name was Get Wood, and I thought my name was Take Care of That Baby.
Yep.
And I said everything y'all mentioned this morning, I've thought of something. I had two important pieces of news, but hanging out clothes, that's where I met T, was hanging clothes. I said he knew I knew how to wash because I was hanging out clothes. And
we tried to buy clothespins the other day, and it took 3 people at Home Depot to help me find clothespins.
Yeah, and we always kept a basket full. In outhouses now, when I went to school at Cohutta, every Halloween, the next morning there was in that four-way where the roads cross down there, there would be somebody's outhouse sitting in the middle of the road.
And all the rest of them would be turned over.
And all the rest of them would be turned over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's a story that talks about the fella down in Tinga, and Ronald know him as the guy that got the monkey drunk. The story that we've told on here a few times about somebody getting somebody's pet monkey drunk. But those boys were turned over the outhouse, and that fella he fell in, and he was yelling, "Fellers, come back and get me!" And they just kept running.
They didn't want nothing to do with him.
You own your own.
You're on your own. And Marilyn, something that I found in Ron's mom's stuff, she had one of those little pouches that hung on the clothesline that had your little clothespins in it. I thought that was neat. Of course, I only remember Grandma and Mom having aprons, and you'd have your pockets full, and you'd have them stuck all over your apron.
Yeah, we had a big old pocket apron with a big old pocket in it, and that's all we used that apron for, was to carry those clothespins around in. But you didn't dare leave one on the line, because the weather would turn it dark, and then it would make a place on the clothes, and so you got in trouble for leaving them.
You know what I remember the most about clotheslines? There was usually a 2x4. You stood in the middle to keep it from falling, and when that 2x4 is down and you go running through the yard, that clothesline will just hang you.
Yeah, and there were men that knew how to hang clotheslines. You could tell where a handyman lived and where a handyman didn't live by just looking at the clothesline in the backyard.
Well, my grandmother had to have it down. She was only 4'8", and she had to have it down close to the ground. Then she would put it up. Well, it was down, and I went running through the yard and
clotheslines yourself.
Yes,
yeah.
I closed.
That's where that name came from,
yes,
Ron.
It sure did, and it works because my feet went above my head. And
well, Marilyn will tell you something that our grandma did that women just don't do anymore. I don't care if she was working in the yard or if she was going. She didn't wear one to church, but she always wore an apron.
And you wore one in her kitchen.
That's right, because you went in her kitchen to help, and she thought you had to have an apron on, and she'd whip one out the door. But I'll tell you, when she passed on, the thing that I got the most from the estate sale, I made sure I got a couple of her quilts, which were not exceptionally pretty, but she had made them. They were to use quilts. Yeah. But I made sure I got a couple of those old aprons, and they're up in the closet. I don't use them, but. But you put on an apron now,
that
people
means
look
she
at
would.
you.
That was implied she would cook.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to tell you guys that Mount Carmel Baptist Church down on Blue Springs Road is having a bluegrass music thing tonight. Oh. Just Bluegrass from Inglewood is going to be there from 5 to 8, and their little ad says to bring your own chair, and they're going to have food and stuff. And then tonight is when Cohutta has their street dance. Now, the question you're supposed to ask me is, what street is it on?
Yeah, in Cohutta, there's not many choices.
It's on the street.
It's the only street they got. It's on in front of the fire hall there on, they call it Red Clay Road. It's the north and south street that they got. But
now, the thing about going to the First Baptist Church of Cohutta with our grandma is that if you stepped outside, you could hear the singing at the black church, and it sounded a whole lot better to me than the singing at Grandma's church.
Yeah, but I just thought I'd let people know about that, because
thanks.
Everybody enjoys music.
So, did the fish drown last week during the fish sale?
The poor fish guy, he had 2 flat tires somewhere down in Georgia, and the pump went out to the oxygen circulator that keeps the. So he basically didn't have but just a few fish by the time he got to us. And one guy picked his order up, and he gave him what he had left on the truck because he had had some disaster. But they should be back sometime. We're thinking they're going to come back the 19th.
Okay. Sounds like he had a rough day in the rain.
Oh, it rained so hard.
All righty.
Remember, flat stones, smooth stones.
Yeah, smooth stones, no rough stones.
All right.
Thanks, Marilyn.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Folks, we need to take a little bit of a break right here and pay a few bills, and we'll be back with you in about 5 minutes.
WOOP LP Cleveland, Tennessee.
Check into cash. Turn your car into cash at Check Into Cash. Get a title loan fast and a lot more cash. Turn your car into cash at Check Into Cash. Go to checkintocash.com right now and find out what your car is worth. Our expert appraisers are standing by. You get the most money from Check Into Cash. Call 877-262-CASH. Turn your car into cash at Check Into Cash.
Get on down. Check into cash.
Wheeler Technologies has moved. Visit them at their new location at 490 Grove Avenue Southwest next to Bradley Rentals. Same great folks, same great service with a better location to serve you. Call Wheeler Technologies for voice, data, and security needs at 664-TECH. That's 664-8324. And remember, depend on Wheeler Technologies for the current time and temperature every day at 476-1111. Tennessee Alarm Contractor C1750.
You save when you buy from the factory. Now you can save even more while we celebrate the grand opening of our new store on the North Shore in Chattanooga. Plus, we'll pay your sales tax on Mermaid products $6.99 or more.
Kiesler Incorporated is in the business of recycling your metal, and they pay cash. The only covered scrapyard around where you can recycle rain or shine. They're located off the bypass on Overhead Bridge Road. Automobiles, appliances, copper, stainless steel, tin, all metals can be recycled at Kiesler, and you can walk away with cash. That's right, they pay cash, and they are the friendliest scrapyard in the Southeast. If you have unwanted metal just laying around, bring it to Kiesler Recycling today and walk away with cash. Kiesler Recycling open Monday through Saturday 7:30 to 5 or call for more details 614-3000. Partly sunny skies on tap for your Saturday. We'll see highs today in the low 80s. Overnight tonight, very nice and mild with lows around 61 degrees. Partly sunny skies again for your Sunday with highs tomorrow afternoon in the low 80s. That's a look at your forecast here on Whoop FM.
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. We got someone on the phone with us right now. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Larry. Go ahead. This is Larry Ledford.
Yeah, good morning. I used to work with a fellow by the name of Dow Jones, and he was raised back during the Depression. And he was talking about outhouses. He said that during Depression, the WPA would come and build outhouses for people. And they were made in real high quality. And but the bottoms of them was built on a little platform made out of 4x4s. And it's like a little sled. And when you needed to move it, you just had a horse or a mule to it, and you could drag it to a new location, you know. So they're real high quality. I used to, when I worked with my grandfather when he was a house painter here, we did a job for a lady widow lady lived up on Ocoee Street in an apartment, and she was telling about her daddy was a doctor here in Cleveland. I don't remember her name or anything, but said that they had the first flush toilet in Cleveland, their house, and people used to come to the house, and everybody had to go and see that commode, you know, and flush it. So, that was a thrill to see that. You know.
Well, you know, we were talking about the Cherokee Hotel when we first went on the air in 1925. I mean, it had to have, surely it had
air conditioning.
It had air conditioning, well, what they called air conditioning in the day. Yeah. But I think that it surely had indoor plumbing.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, I'm sure they wouldn't have built nothing like that.
I think the sewer system was already built in Cleveland in 1925.
I don't think that each room had I think maybe each floor may have had its
community
own
bathroom.
Yeah, each floor had a restroom.
And they had gravity working for them there.
Yeah. And you're talking about the first indoor plumbing bathroom. That was the storage tank was built about 4 feet higher than the commode itself, and that was how it cleaned itself. Was whenever you released that water, it would go down and flush it out.
Yeah.
It wasn't built real low like profile like they are now, right down on the floor. They were built up the wall.
Yeah, talking about Cherokee Hotel, my grandpa, he painted up there several times, and I remember we was painting the windows there. It was back in the 60s, and I went up on top of the building up there. I just went up the fire escape, and there was a cooling tower up there. They used water to cool the refrigerator in their central area, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the rack for that cooling pan just made out of redwood. And it was about 8 or 10 foot high, and the water would come up and spray on it and run down, you know, and the air would cool it. A lot of that water blew out, and there was the roof up there was tar with gravel on it, and there was a pond up there. I mean, that thing was probably 10 foot diameter.
They had a pool and didn't know it.
Yeah, and there was weeds and stuff growing up there, you know, 4 or 5 foot high, you know. And
I just love stories like that.
yeah, it's weird. But talking about having to use cleansing materials, I used to work with Bill Curtis over the Boy Scouts, and he was also a coach there at, I believe, at Waterville. And he gave his team there a cookout one time. It was a farm down there that he used. And they went down there, and one of the boys, he, as the English say, was caught short. He had to go to the woods. And the only leaves he could find is the closest ones that he got a hold of.
Poison oak.
It was poison ivy or poison oak. And they said he was in miserable shape there for about a week.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Woo, and with no Benadryl back then. Woo!
Yeah, that's all I have.
You know, we have painted some of the greatest pictures today. Thank you, Larry. Good talking to you.
Yeah,
Oh, my. So, yeah, you know, what was it? Who
P. Dabble. Oh.
Jerry Clower said, shoot up here amongst us. Somebody's got to
have some relief.
That's what I thought about it. Good morning. You're live in Old Town Cleveland.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Seeing your photo there of the people at the dining table, that brings back good memories.
Yes.
Family eating together, and I can remember, in fact, Mother would throw it up in her face well after we were grown. She said it seemed like every time she waxed the kitchen floor, you know, she'd have it where you comb your hair in it while we'd spill something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She'd have to redo that spot.
We'd spill some of that red Kool-Aid on it, wouldn't we, Neil?
And I've certainly gotten a few rain baths running to try to beat the rain to get clothes off the line. I've done that, and I remember when milk was delivered, you went and got it off the front porch.
Neil, do you remember going out to the clothesline when it's cold and your blue jeans would be frozen stiff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Be just rock hard.
You carried them in your arms, you like wood.
Yeah, and my mom would. It looked like a Chinese laundry in our house if it rained for several days, or if it was just really too cold to get out and do the wash and stuff. She could hang stuff in more places that you didn't think you could hang anything.
Yeah, and then Mother also had one of these little indoor racks. Had multiple little. Well, it folded or collapsed, but
yes.
They had probably about half-inch size dowel rods on it. You could hang things on it. You know, just small washes or whatever. But yeah, it was different. Even, you know, no older than I am at a young 63. I remember some things that aren't anymore. But enjoying the show.
Thanks, you, Neil.
Listen, all right.
Come on.
You know, talking about sitting around the table, you know, when I grew up, I remember eating breakfast around the table, listening to Corky Whitlock. You know, that's WBAC. We done that in the mornings, and we sit there, and I drank coffee when I was like 6. And you had to have a saucer.
Saucers.
Oh yeah, you got to have. You had your cup in. And
You had to saucer that coffee.
Yeah, that's right. You know, so I remember that. Of course, I had a lot of milk and a lot of cream and that pet. What was it?
Pet milk.
Evaporated
or
milk.
Carnation.
Yeah, one of those. Yeah. I would have those, and then with sugar in it, and then at supper we would sit around the table and eat the same thing we ate every day. You know, basically, it's just, just.
Of course, my dad grew up in a different generation.
Yeah.
He was born in 1918, and he lived with his grandmother, and she had a baking day, which she made cornbread and biscuits and cakes and pies and stuff, and put them in her pie safe, and you ate out of that for almost the whole week. And he said that's why you put milk and cornbread and milk to eat it, is because it'd get so hard.
Well, I didn't know. I thought it just tastes good.
And the cabinet had those little holes punched in it so that the flies and things couldn't get in. But
Good morning, you live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, there's one thing you haven't talked about, Ron.
Well, Lord, we've talked about everything else. What is it?
Remember how people used to iron?
Oh, iron. Oh, Lordy. And not too long ago, I found my mom's iron that she used to use, that I remember when she was a child using. And it was an electric iron, but it must have weighed 5 pounds.
Yeah, these were before you set them up on top of the stove.
Yeah.
And let them heat up.
Yeah.
We've got some at our house there, some old ones.
That Ron's grandma kept just in case there wasn't any electricity anymore. She was an original prepper. She kept green beans for years and
toilet paper
because she was afraid they was going to run out, because she had seen those smooth stones and those rough stones.
That's right.
Yeah, I used to have some till this tornado come through and took it all.
Yeah. You lost a lot of good things in that, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did your family sit around the table?
Oh, we used a lot of times. We used to sit around the table without use a coil lamp to CD by.
And you didn't watch TV during dinner.
Oh, there was no such thing as TVs back then.
And you didn't sing at the dinner table. I always remember that rule. I always wondered why it wasn't proper to sing at the dinner table. Do you know that?
You was respectful. You come to the table to eat, and there was a place to sing, and that's where you went to sing.
And P-Dab, if you misbehaved at the table, what happened?
You didn't get to eat.
Oh,
and you didn't wear your hat at the.
Oh no!
Or you didn't wear your hat in the house.
Yeah, that's right.
I get on to my kids all the time, and people all the time about wearing their hats at the dinner table. I hate that.
Yeah, you see people out now that they don't take their hats off for anything.
Well, let me say something about that right now. Is I go to a lot of the high school football games, and I want to encourage all parents and friends of people and saying is when they do the national anthem, people need to take their hat off.
They need to be respectful.
And I know I was at a wrestling event 4 or 5 years ago, and they started the national anthem, and there's several boys, younger boys, high school age boys, still had their hats on.
Now they were standing up.
Yeah, they're standing up and being respectful. But there was a gentleman standing right off from over there, and I just heard this deep voice come out and said, "Hats, boys."
Yeah.
And I every time I go to the ball game, I sit there and I want the announcer to say, "Hats, boys."
And every boy, that hat came off. Nobody questioned it. Nobody rolled their eyes. I was real proud of them. I thought they did good.
People wear
it takes an adult to lead them.
They wear their hat indoor now. Boy, that was something you didn't. When you got inside, you took your cap or your hat off. Now you go out to eat. People wear their caps. I'm guilty of it too if I wear a cap.
Joe, you probably remember your dad, probably like my dad. He had a work hat and he had a dress hat. He had different hats. Not a lot of them, but for different occasions.
Yeah, I don't remember my dad that much because he died when I was 6 years old. So
what's that kind of dress hat that the men wore?
P-Dad gonna have to help us that one now.
It was a
fedora.
Yeah, they had a kind of a wide brim.
Yes,
medium wide. It was a felt hat, well built hat that
and
they
my
wore
dad had
for
the
Sunday.
Same one.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that same hat for years and years and years.
Yeah, and
let me get off of here.
All right, Joe. Thank you so much, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
How many kids were in your family there, P-Dab?
There was 6 of us.
6, and your mom and dad. So you had a big table then. 8 people there, and A lot of cooking.
And we, for most of the time for dinner or supper, it wasn't just the 6 of us. It was always, especially on the farm, Mother insisted on no one going hungry.
Absolutely.
She did not.
That was welfare back then.
She was.
That's right.
She would go to the field, and she would. Daddy would always go in, and she'd tell her about 10 o'clock. We've got 3 extras to come to dinner. They didn't bring any lunch today, so they'll come to eat. They would either come to eat if they were too shy to come in the house. We would fix them a plate and take it back to the field with them.
The family always said, "Go ahead, caller."
Hello.
This is Peggy McLean, and y'all were talking about hoe cakes.
Yeah.
I'll tell you about something good right now. They're making homemade sorghum over in Polk County at the Amish, and that sorghum is wonderful with cornbread fritters. And when they're hot, they're thin. You make them like a pancake. But you mix your cornbread up just like you make your cornbread, but make it thin. And you pour it thin in an orange skillet with butter, and then you put your sorghum on there, and it's like eating a popcorn ball.
It sure is. I've eaten many one of them. I know.
I'm coming to your house.
Do y'all know what all a woman done with her apron?
Know what all?
Go ahead.
You put out the fires.
Went into the garden. You pulled your apron up. You filled it with your tomatoes or bell peppers or peppers or little green onions or anything. You used it for a bag because we didn't have plastic bags or, and stuff like people have now. And you made pies. You washed your hands and dried them on that because we didn't have paper towel. So the apron was used all day long for all kinds.
That's right. And if any little crying face came up, the first thing that happened is they'd take the end of that apron and wipe off that crying face.
And I could always tell when my mother was mad. She would roll that apron, start at the end. She wouldn't open her mouth. She'd start rolling that apron. And you knew to hush or stop whatever you were doing.
Did you ever put out a fire with your apron?
Yeah, I guess she did.
Well, I've seen my grandma grab a hot pan off the stove, use it for like a pot holder. And
she didn't have that handy either.
But now my grandmother ironed everything until the day she died. Because first of all, apparently she had encountered lice somewhere in her lifetime. And she knew that if whatever you ironed would take care of that problem. And once she got that bed made up, you didn't sit on it, you didn't touch it, you didn't get close to it.
My grandmother the same way.
I had 5 brothers and my mother and count my daddy, 6 men folks at our house. And my mother ironed every one of their handkerchiefs, every pair of their shorts, because we rubbed them on the rub board and wrenched them, hung them on the line, and towels and everything was stick. We didn't have softener. We had Octane soap and Clorox. And Lysol came in a little bottle, and that's how we cleaned our bath, outdoor toilet. You kept a bag of lime with a cup in it, and you dumped it in there, and then you took Lysol and mixed it up a tablespoon. It came in a little bitty brown bottle.
And it stank to high heavens.
Yeah.
But it smelled, that's what you learned, that it smelled good.
And the chiggers and all that junk out of your bathroom. And we had a 2-seater because there was so many of us. And it was a little ways from the house.
Peggy, where'd you grow up?
Right here in Bradley County.
But what part of Bradley County?
Well, it's called Trout Road now. It was Route 3. Around Wildwood, and Warney and Sally and Philip and all this. That was in the 40s. And
so you're Warney Fennell's sister?
Huh?
Who did you say was your sister?
I had 2 sisters.
Oh, okay. What was their names?
They're both dead. Louise Ragsdale and Mabel Guerin.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
They were Harmons. And my mother was a Watson, and there was 10 of them, 5 women and 5 men. I had 5 aunts and 5 uncles. My daddy was from the 7 boys. There was no girls in his family.
Well, you had big family reunions, didn't you?
Well, everybody's dead now.
Yeah, I know.
Watson grocery stores with my mother's brothers, you know.
Okay.
Where Jim Russ funeral home was my Uncle Roy's house.
Yes.
Up here on Ocoee Street. And all that up there is where different ones of them live. But and my Uncle Bill built the Town and Country Restaurant across from Chase's, you know. And there was Cleveland Hotel next door.
Yes,
and
yes.
Cards had a car place.
Yeah, Bob Card.
Oh, wasn't there? And then you had Bond's grocery store.
Right.
Built new. And across the street was P&S Hospital.
Absolutely.
And it turned into the Cleveland Annex. That's where the railroad people stayed when they were left overnight in Cleveland. And a white store down on 5 Point. And Uncle Jim Watson had J.L. Watson Motor Company. And then Billy Jackson had a little restaurant down there, about where that new one is now. And whoever thought about anybody living on that end of town? You know, that all business. And then Clifford Sharp built a cross street Sharp's Cleaners, which is Wilson's now, or what it's called. And then Chase's had the car place there.
Is that the Pontiac place?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my brother-in-law was the bookkeeper there for Dean W. Chase, the old Dean W. And
well, you're just a wealth of information. I'll tell you right now,
Miss Peggy, we need for you to come be on our show with us sometime.
Absolutely.
Well, I was one day. I came down there, you know, for the Tucker Springs and all the things. See the book, the diary that's over at Lee College.
Yes.
Of Cleveland.
Oh, I remember you, Peggy. Yes.
Yeah, but I gave that to Dr. Schnell. Came over here and got it, and 2 or 3 more books that I got out of the old Tucker Springs Library. That's where all that came from.
The Tucker Springs Library. Where was that at?
Down there at McDonald.
I mean, was it in the depot or in the hotel?
Up on the hill.
Okay.
And that's where the well people came in on train, and then Mr. Brock drove them up there when they got off the train. They lived down there at McDonald. Ray Brock, Sr., and then his son went on to be the Supreme Judge.
Wow.
And he's got Calvin and several boys left. And one girl, Charlotte Albritton. But his wife ran the post office at McDonald for years. Miss Brock did. So.
Interesting, Miss Peggy.
All this is all old history.
It is, and you need to be writing some of it down.
And down here at Key Street, people don't realize it, but on 20th Street, up there where Betty Hicks lives, that was her home place. The Davises, they lived there, and then Paul built out on Georgetown Road. That was part of his daddy's farm, facing Georgetown. And all that down in there was creeks, and they had cattle. And why Deer Park is called Deer Park is because the Watson boys caught deers and brought them, put them in Deer Park.
The Watson boys did that, okay.
And that's why they stayed down there was deer that came out of the mountains.
And they just kept them there for pets.
Yeah, and over on Willow Street was a great big barn that said J.L. Watson Motor Company, and there's wild hogs in it, and they went down to the creek. See, the creek was down there on Keith, and they pushed it over to the side.
Yeah, they did.
But it was all down there, and behind Stewart Park was a big lake. And it's all been filled in.
Yeah.
Things have changed, haven't they?
Where the post office is, that was just a water hole.
Yeah, it was. That whole valley down through there was just a big swamp.
Still a lot of water in there
Yeah.
now, too. A lot of problems still.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for calling.
Thanks, Miss Peggy. Come be with us sometime.
All right.
Bye-bye, dear.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Boy,
Peggy, we were having a, I believe, I want to say we were talking about the
all around Bradley County. Good, she?
She knew more than all of us.
I want to think that we were talking about the Dutch settlement the day that she came in, and she had given a copy of the original diary to Lee University.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, Ron, it's Mick. I was going to ask P-Dab, who was it gave his mother the name Big Mama and his dad Big Daddy?
Well, I think that was some of the grandkids was the first ones that started that because they would come visit us, and they probably couldn't say Grandma and Grandpa or something like that, so they just said Big Daddy and Big Mama.
Well, Doug had sent me to your mother one time, and I don't know when it was, back in the 80s, I think, and she invited me in, and she never turned you away. She
No.
Bad men, and I miss them both. They're both real good people. And but Big Mama, she never would turn you away from her house. She just fed me, and I think Doug sent me her to take her to town or do something. I don't know what it was. And but anyway, I met your dad back in '82 when I first went to work for Doug, and he always told me, he said, "Now if anybody mistreats you, just come to me." And he was kind of stern, wasn't he, P-Dale?
Yeah.
And but anyway, that was a story I thought you might like.
Oh yeah, appreciate it.
All right.
Yeah, she was a fine lady. She never turned anybody away.
And your dad was too.
A fine fellow. Yeah. There you go.
Thanks.
Thank you. You know, and that was just back in the time when you knew some kid was hungry, or if somebody did you some little favor, or if they just came by and they, you know, if you lived out on the highway especially, you got to understand there wasn't anything for miles and miles and miles sometimes when you're traveling, and people would stop to get a drink of water, maybe be glad to use your outhouse. Yeah.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hi, Ron.
Yeah.
You all remember the oil cans that people had with the strainer in them?
Yeah, I don't know. What did you use those for? Was that for your lamps and stuff, or?
No, it was to catch the cooking oil, or the lard.
And what did you do? No, tell me again.
It was a can that they put their leftover grease.
Yes.
And it had a strainer in it, and it caught the meat.
Oh, it had a strainer in it. Okay.
Yeah, a piece of screen wire to catch the chunks of meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that as
remember
much
seeing
as just.
We used a tin can. That's all we used.
Debbie?
Yes.
My stepmama May?
Yes.
Had one.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing one with the strainer in it, but I'm sure they existed, or like P-Dab said, people just use like a piece of a screen wire out of a screen.
On the cabinet. Well, I thought about it just now. She would always tell me, hey, get the top off or I can use the grease.
I always remember going to May's house, and it always smelled like ham.
Yeah.
I always thought that was the best smell. It smells like ham.
I would like that.
I love Mama's cooking more than anything. I miss her.
I think we all liked our own mama's cooking.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. Hey, P-Deb, if I could go back in, I'd be a lot bigger than I am right now.
Yeah, I'm going to admit, my mom, well, you can say that I grew up pretty healthy there. But
my mother, Debbie knows her, and she was a good cook.
Now, I'm going to say my mom could not cook a biscuit to save her, so she couldn't cook canned biscuits.
She could cook everything else,
my
but
mom
she never
could cook. She could do really good, but when it come to biscuits, now my grandmother, her mother, could make the best biscuits because she made the little bowl in the middle of the flour and poured the buttermilk in the middle. And my mom could make. She called something. She said something. She said they were drop biscuits, and I'd say, "Where in the hell did you drop them?" And you throw them out in the yard, and the dogs
would eat them. Of course, he don't look like he missed
now,
very many
everything else
biscuits.
she cooked was very, very good, but biscuits was not her forte in life. You know.
Hey, Deb,
Thank you.
Went to Mama's house, wouldn't he?
Yeah. Thank you, dear. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good talking to you.
P-Deb, when you wanted to talk to the neighbors, what did you have to do?
You went to them.
Yeah, and sometimes the neighbors were just right next door like they are today.
Yeah, just next door. You know, you went to their house. You didn't pick up the phone and call or something.
And why didn't you call?
You didn't have no phone.
Okay.
I didn't have a phone either.
A lot of times, if mother or dad wanted to talk to, say, my aunt lived half a mile away, wanted to tell her something, she would write it on a piece of paper. And
one of the kids ran it down there.
We just took it down there, and they would write a reply on another piece, and you would bring it back. And that was a communication. And if it was something serious, they would meet, you know, at one of them's house and talk about it. If one of their sisters or something was sick, and they might be sick for 2 or 3 days before they got the information back to them.
Yeah, if they lived on the other side of town, it took a long time. Hey, go ahead, caller.
Hello. I couldn't hear that last caller, but
I thought she was talking about using that string and with grease. What was she saying?
She was saying a strainer.
Oh, a strainer.
Yeah, I missed that the first time too. Sometimes when people talking, we get sounds coming and going, and we don't always pick it up. But I finally figured out she was talking about straining it.
Well, let me tell you what I do with it. I save the grease today. I still do that, and I take a old mop yarn, if it's cotton, and soak that in it and use that as a lamp.
Oh yeah, that would work.
It's not too good, but it don't cost nothing. It's that.
Yeah, you know, doesn't Willie Nelson save all of his cooking oil down in Texas, and they use it for fuel?
Yeah.
So you know, it will burn definitely.
Yeah, I tell you something else. My dad told me. He was born 1918. He said they used to go out and pick up old rich pine out of the woods, and they would burn that as a lamp. I've got some old pine coming out of houses about built in the 1880s, and it's so rich that you can light a match to it, and it'll burn like a candle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like 200-year-old now.
Yeah, let's don't burn that. My dad used to talk about when he was a little boy going out in the woods and getting a toothbrush too. I guess it used gum tree.
Black gum
trees.
You didn't use any of those Tennessee toothpicks, did they?
No.
Let me ask P-Dad.
Okay, go ahead.
What did you do when you wasn't working?
Do what?
What did you do when you wasn't working?
You wasn't working because it sounded like you was working constantly.
Well, most of the time, you know, you'd be surprised how much time we had. We utilized what little time we had. On Sunday, we did not work, and sometimes on Saturday afternoon, we got the afternoon off. We would usually go hunting. If it was too wet to plow or too wet to go to the field, we would use that day to maybe go hunting or fishing or somewhere, and we always walked to where we went because we didn't have transportation. So you know, it was.
My grandma used to say, "A man works from sun to sun, but a woman's work is never done."
And we would play ball. We'd play ball in the field. We didn't have a ballpark to go to or anything. We'd go out in the cow pasture, and you've heard the old saying, we used cow patties for bases. Sure did. I mean,
don't slide.
You just don't.
The older ones.
Yeah,
the older dried ones.
You don't use the fresh ones.
Well, and I don't imagine you ever looked at your daddy and told him that you were bored.
No.
You never complained.
You never complained about being bored. He always kept you so tired and wore out that whenever you come into the house, if you wasn't able to go out in the yard and play, you got under a shade tree and rested for a while. We used to play a lot of marbles, and that's something that you never see anymore is people playing marbles, and that's a whole new story right there. We could do a whole program on shooting marbles. How we played and everything, and so I mean it's we entertained ourselves.
Yeah. I'll let you go.
Appreciate you.
Debbie Riggs sent us something here. It says the Monet Theater. It's a moving picture operated for about 2 years and then it closed. And it was operated by J. Hardy Johnson. And he had also another theater called the Akoi that closed. So apparently this must be during the Depression because two things closed. And now the only theater in Cleveland was left, the Bohemia. Mm-hmm. And Debbie needs to send that to the museum. They might could use that.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, Mr. Ed. What's happening, buddy?
Let me turn this thing down just a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
Just a second. That'll work right there. I was just going to ask him if he knew what they used those old smoothing irons for to iron your clothes. What did you use them for at night?
Oh, to keep your feet warm.
Oh, yes, sir, buddy.
Yeah.
They worked pretty good till they got cold about midnight.
Yeah. You didn't move around a lot when you went to bed. You had so many blankets on you couldn't turn over.
Well, if you turned over, if it was a snowy night and it blowed through the rafters in the old lathing and landed on the bed, it didn't melt. So the best thing you do, just be still.
Just lay still. Absolutely.
Now, they used to be my.
Did all that sneak in? Where am I going to sneak in this morning?
Trevina.
Reunion today. Today, this will be the last time my buggians were there.
Until the next one.
Next year.
That's right.
I'll be hollering again. We start at 1 o'clock. Kensher Church Pavilion. That's across the road from Kensher Church. On Kensher Road off of 64 Highway. Start at 1 o'clock. Them girls got that all prettied up out there. I mean, it's really nice. If you want to look at a highway and style something, just come on out. Everybody wear your grass skirt if you want to. Boy, did I say that. Everybody's got a pretty shirt that they bought one and went to highway and they never did get to use it but one time. But it only come on. And food, the call of the day, they just call it finger food, but we've had so much to eat every time. It really do you in. I do appreciate y'all.
All righty, Mr. Ed. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We're having our Catlett Stevenson reunion tomorrow at Tinsley at lunchtime.
Always
and
good food there.
It's a good covered dish. And I tried to determine when that reunion started. And my grandma and grandpa got married in the 20s. And of course, they weren't around when I was trying to determine that. But all the aunts and uncles that had been born in the 20s and 30s said it had been going on for as long as they could remember.
I've been around your family for 40 years, and we've had it for 40.
It originally started, I believe, at Grandma's birthday. And then we decided that August was a little hot for us all to be outside, so we moved to September.
Across the street from the fish hatchery all the time.
We had it at the fish hatchery,
right
and we've had it at Tinsley now probably for the last 30 years. We'd had it on various people's farms, but it's a good time. So if anybody's related to that family, they can come on out.
The also in the bed there, my grandmother had something on a like a broom handle.
That's a bed warmer.
Bed warmer.
And so you put hot coals in it. How do you keep the bed from getting on fire?
Well, it was insulated enough to where it wouldn't.
Did you put it under the covers, or did you just, okay?
You rubbed it under the covers all around. You got it hot, and then you got in the bed. You didn't leave it in the bed with you, I don't think.
And then they had they also had a foot warmer that they used in a buggy. That whenever they rode the buggy, they would
looks like a toolbox kind of thing.
About 18 inches long, and had a flap on it. You could fill that full of coals, and you put your feet on it.
That was your heater. And that's why ladies, they pull those long skirts down over the top of them and they keep the heat in.
But, talking about families, in my mother's side, there was 12. There was 11 girls and 1 boy.
Oh, bless his heart.
They always told that, how many was in your family? Well, there's 11 girls and we've all got a brother. So that was 12. And then on my dad's side, there was 12 in his family. And they was 2 out of each family married sisters and brothers. My mother and one of her sisters married my dad and one of his brothers. His brothers. So we had double first cousins. And
welcome to the South. Where you hear the term double first cousins.
And back then, they wasn't a lot to choose from. They was. The Scoggins family, that was their name, was Scoggins. There was a lot to choose from. There was 11 girls there. So the boys, they hung out quite frequently. And, back then they didn't date for a year, 2 years. They might date for 2 weeks. And they was ready to get married. I can remember my mother, they got married and they moved down to Ball Springs. When they had their little cabins around there. They were little 2-room cabins. And she said, now this is how we got started. We just had a little monkey heater like type thing to cook on, and said we had a 3-legged table. And said we didn't have any chairs. We had a bed, and we would pull that table up to the bed and both sit there on the bed and hold that table up and eat off of it. Said, now that was our household. And they lived there for a little while, and then they moved to another place. And they were people back then. They were kind of like nomads. They would.
You went to where the work was.
They sharecropped a lot. You know, they would move to a farm and maybe do a little sharecropping there. If you had chickens, they were trained. They would. The chickens would see you coming, they'd lay down and cross their legs because they're going to be tied up and moved. You know, they took everything they had. They took their chickens, their
you just took everything.
They took everything.
Yeah.
And most of the time they threw it on a wagon and they would haul it. They would load the night, and in the morning, bright and early, they would pull out. And I can remember people saying when my dad's family moved from Dayton to Bradley County, they moved out there on White Oak, and they said it looked like a wagon train coming through. Said that's how many every boy. There was 9 boys and 3 girls, and
whole families would move.
The whole family
all the
would
generations,
move, and every one of them had a wagon and a team of horses.
Hello, Ron.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is Brian Freed.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian. What's up, buddy?
Well, I was wanting to call to remind everyone about next Friday and Saturday.
Go ahead.
Next Friday and Saturday, we're having a reenactment of Civil War activity down here in downtown Cleveland. Friday night, we'll be having a panel discussion, and it will be in front of the Cleveland Public Library. We're having a discussion on sort of Civil War in 1863, or sort of what happened here in Cleveland.
What was happening in Cleveland in 1863,
well,
Brian? Just briefly.
We just this past week, this was the anniversary of the Union Army invading Cleveland. Those first troops were stationed here sort of overnight on the night of September 25th, and on the 26th they were attacked by Confederate forces coming up from Chickamauga, and they ran them back out of Cleveland. So it was the first actions of the Civil War for Cleveland, Tennessee.
Okay. And so in the reenactment, you're going to have on Friday during the day, that's going to be for the school children. And on Friday night, we're having the panel discussion. Do we need to bring our own chairs on Friday night?
Yes.
Please bring your own chair. And then on Saturday, what hours will that be?
That will be from 9 until 4.
And you're going to have people demonstrating quilting and encampments and all that kind of stuff. And so this is a good opportunity, if you've never been to an encampment, to come right here in your own hometown. And the library was picked because there was actually an encampment in that area.
That's right. Yeah, right in front of the library where the sort of the Masonic Girls' School was located. I have evidence that there were Union troops that were stationed right here on the north end of town.
And I need to mention there that that white Masonic building that's near the Monument Building, it was actually standing during the Civil War.
That's right.
That's right. A lot of times people don't realize how old that little building is, and unfortunately for the last few years it's been used as an apartment building and has deteriorated some, but it's probably one of our older brick buildings in Cleveland.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Brian, as always.
Yeah, and also, of course, we'll be having our annual cemetery tour at the end of the month, but I'll be calling in to remind you.
Yes. I think that last year we had several people that had heard us talking about it on the show that came up to the cemetery, and I hope they'll all join us up there again this year.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye-bye. Brian does a lot of history here, and he's just one of those folks that's out in the dark corners, and no one gives him the credit that he deserves, but he has really saved a lot of Bradley County history.
Let me ask you an important question, P. Dan.
Okay.
You talk about one family had 11 girls, and some guy and families had all boys. I know my grandmother's family. There was 8 girls, and they finally called the last one Jack. They were so disappointed. Was it better to have 8 girls because there'll be a lot of people coming to help around the farm, or was it better to have 8 boys?
Well, people, I think back then, and this carried over even in our family, when you had boys, I often wondered, why do we raise all this corn and hay to feed that worthless team of horses? Why don't we get rid of the horses and we won't have to raise so much stuff? But a lot of times the more boys I had, the bigger the farm was. Mm-hmm. And the girls, if Miss Hazel would have been here today, she could have really told you how they went to the field and plowed just like the boys did in a big family. She said we would plow a team of mules or a mule all day, and right alongside their dad. And
there was no gender discrimination then.
They everybody pitched in and done their part, and she'll tell you that they were the happiest people in the country.
You had to work if you're going to eat.
Right.
What's the little story about the chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
The little red hen.
Yeah.
But we were talking earlier about your mom and dad meeting each other. Well, my grandmother and grandpa lived close to each other down in Whitfield County in a community called Hopewell, and she delivered milk. Well, she delivered milk to the Stevenson farm, and John saw this lovely young lady, and in a few days he said, "Would you like to get married?" And she said, "Yeah, let me go get my other dress." And that was basically
That's
it.
Basically how they
came up and found Reverend Art Hambright up there at Flint Springs Church, and he just said, "Well, y'all are married now." And they went back, and she went to her house and got her extra dress, the only extra dress she had. They went to the cabin.
My daughter and son-in-law doing that kind of wedding. Go. I said, I'll give you money if you'll just run off.
Yeah, we tried to get my granddaughter to do that, and we tried to get our daughters to do that, but
it cost a little more, didn't it?
Hey, a good party's worth it.
And I still don't know how much it costs for my daughter to get. I've never heard the number.
No,
and
you don't want to hear. You don't even ask.
I was reminded of something else too when P-Dad was talking about sending a note to the neighbor's house.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you heard the comment "reading between the lines." It's because they'd run out of place to room to write, and so they just write in the margins where the other person had written, because it was paper was kind of scarce, and this was true during the Civil War, especially the Confederate soldiers. They talked about, "Well, I wrote between the lines to Mama." And that's what they were doing.
Uh-huh. Well,
that's your bit of useless information for the day.
Now, if you ever get into trivia, thing. Milking the cow. I mean, did you have a cow?
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
everybody had to have a cow back. I know Jerry Frazier was here, and his family was talking about they lived right down here on South Ocoee Street, and they had a milk cow, and they would walk it up to where now is Fort Hill Cemetery and let it graze. And then bring it back and milk it. So that was even people in town, though.
Mm-hmm. Well, when I was growing up, I'd say my dad would start talking about the Depression, and being the teenager that I was, I'd start rolling my eyes, and he said, "Well, if we ever get in a depression again, we'll have a cow tied up to the front porch." And that's when we moved off the farm. And I always thought that was kind of interesting, because I think that's because of yellow fever and those kinds of diseases that people didn't understand. Everybody had their own milk cow, so you knew where the milk came from, so that you knew that you weren't getting a disease by feeding your kids milk. And that's why all the fancy smancy houses up and down Ocoee Street had their own barn and their own cows to be milked every day.
Yeah, and now, of course, if the
1930s.
If the milk went bad, if you had it delivered, you could get rickets. Is that what you got from the bad milk?
Well, you just didn't get enough.
We never did have any delivered. We always had.
So yeah. So
this
now
was delivered via cow.
This milk isn't like you drink from Mayfield's today or any other brand.
No.
It's a different milk. No. I mean, Bird Dog could bring us in what
well,
people drink.
You just wish that I hope that your cow didn't get into the fresh onions or some bitter weeds, because the milk tasted, and it would look funny. It would look that funny color.
And it would smell too, because you could. But if this happened to get into the wild onions or something and have, you could. They'd always throw out an onion on the table. Eat that onion, you can't taste it. And it made sense. And but we always, and what we done was we would strain that with milk before we went to school of a morning, and we'd come in, we'd strain that milk off, and put it in a ice box or refrigerator, or take it to the spring, whatever, and we'd let that cream rise to the top. If you had a real good Jersey cow, and they was rich in cream, you would probably get a quart and a half of cream out of a gallon of milk. Well, you'd pour that off, and you'd let that set, and they would set it behind the cook stove, behind the heater or cook stove, and let it clabber, let it set up, and that's what made you buttermilk. And you would set and churn that buttermilk, and by hand, you just chug, and
my mom had a glass daisy churn.
Daisy, you could do that.
That's something that they're going to be doing next Saturday. A live demonstration of there at the library is making butter and putting it in the molds and all that.
Now,
that's another thing that they're doing.
Let me just ask you: did you people actually drink buttermilk?
Sure did.
I did. I really
See,
loved
I have never acquired the taste for buttermilk.
Oh, it's good.
No.
Buttermilk and cornbread is the best you can eat.
Yeah, you put the buttermilk in the biscuit and cook it. That's good. But just drinking the buttermilk, I can't do that.
You got to have good buttermilk.
P-Dab, growing up, and after everybody around you got indoor plumbing and a little bit of electricity, they'd have that bulb hanging out from the ceiling. Were there people in your family that just refused all that nonsense, and they still lived without electricity or without the indoor plumbing, or did most everybody come along?
Well, most everybody come along. Matter of fact, my aunt's place, they just passed away 5-6 years ago. That would have been Hazel's sister. Their outdoor previous still standing. It's about falling down now, but I think they were the last ones to ever to acquire indoor plumbing, and but no, whenever they could afford it, they were proud for it to come along because
it was just so much work otherwise.
Yeah, it was so much easier and so much convenient that no, they didn't refuse that. Now, Bullet calls in, and his uncle that lived next door to us, they never did have indoor plumbing. Matter of fact, their electricity was 110, still run into the house up till my brother bought the place from them, and when they passed away, and had to have the third lead run into the house and rewired for 220, and they still carried water from the spring, and still live the old way.
And I remember, in my lifetime, but I remember my dad talking about if there was something like a major event on the radio, whoever had the radio would have the window open and people would gather around and listen in the community.
And they back then, you ran a radio, and you had to have an antenna for a radio, and it looked like spider web running through the trees, and they had wires running everywhere to pick up all the waves. They would the main thing they would pick up be Grand Ole Opry. I know Bullet's uncle. He was a sports fanatic. He picked up boxing, all the baseball games, and everything, and that was just a way of life.
Ron's put a picture up here, and this is a 1933 picture, and it has some folks sitting around looking amazed, like an old country store, looking amazed at the radio. I think that's pretty.
Of dairy.
And now, country store was an important gathering place for people too, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, they had a big old pot-bellied stove. I can remember down at McDonald. They had the store is still standing. It's an antique store now, but I can remember going in there, and they would be 5 or 6 sitting around the pot-bellied stove, and they kept the fire burning back there, and that's where you learned what was going on in the community and everything, and
now was that usually the post office too?
Post
or something
office was in that, a lot of it, and
they had a telephone usually.
You got all the information from right there, and most of the time, if you wanted to pass on anything, you would leave a note for say I wanted to contact Ron. Let's say this tell Ron this and write it on a piece of paper. Tell him to contact me or something. I've got something for him or something like that. And that was just a way of communicating.
Yeah.
It's a family gathering, more or less, but it was a community gathering.
Now, these country stores, there wasn't no Walmarts back then.
No,
and, the country stores were pretty much it. Now, and what did you get there? I mean, did you and just salt? Maybe is one example.
Everything.
Salt and coffee.
Coffee, sugar, flour. Maybe feed. They specialized in feed, like
some fabric.
And if the women came in, like I said, fabric. If they wanted something special, they would tell him, and they'd say, "Well, the man runs next week, and I'll have to order it. It'd be in about 2 weeks," and so it would come in, and it had clothes. It had farm clothes, clothes you wired. It didn't have a dress. Sunday clothes. It had overalls, jackets, shoes, stuff you worked with, tools, nails, horseshoes. It was just a country general store, and you talk about the pickle barrel. They had the pickle barrel. They had the meal barrel. They had
Cracker barrel.
Big barrels of stuff sitting around, and of course, they couldn't get by with all that today because the health department would come in and, you're killing people. But
well, one more person before we go that I want to mention. There was a fellow that everyone called Uncle Frank Frazier, and he lived over about where Brown Stove is now. And in the 1950s, he was still bringing his horse and buggy to First Baptist Church. And you would think with a horse and buggy that there was no money. I mean, he probably didn't have any money, bless his heart. Well, when he left this earth, he left the church a lot of money. He had
saved all that money on gasoline.
That's right. Well, he was just, that's just the way he always had done it. And he didn't own a car. He owned a horse and a buggy. And so he'd be up in downtown Cleveland in the mid-1950s with his horse and buggy.
Well, and PW, you got anything to close out with?
Are we about ready to close?
Yeah, well, it's 12 o'clock. Past 12. God.
Okay,
we've had too much fun.
I got one thing.
Sure.
Over at Tri-State Exhibition next Saturday and Sunday, we're having a fall frenzy. That'll be a craft and flea market type thing. Anybody that's got anything they want to sell or anything, call Tri-State. It's free admission, free parking. We're trying to get something to kind of fill in over there to take up the slack and days off over there. And if it works out pretty good, we're going to try to do it once a week or once a month, during the week. But this is going to be a trial. It's going to be under the cover, and it'll all be rain or shine. So feel free to show up over there and bring your merchandise to sell. It don't make any difference what it is, but you need to call Tri-State and get you a space available.
I would like to mention, too, someone stopped me in Walmart yesterday and asked me where they could buy my Confederate Voices book. The Confederate Voices book and the Caney Creek DVD and book, they're at the Museum Center at 5 Points. Yes. And Confederate Voices is at Red Ribbon and at Hiwassee Heritage Center.
And there's just a lot we didn't get to cover today. There's so much.
We didn't get to sew or quilt
or sew.
But I learned so much,
about the outhouses.
Brenda shared some great moments with us, and of course we know about smooth rocks now. I'll never be able to walk in the creek again. And tell you, times have changed, and that's one of the reasons we come in here and do Old Town Cleveland is to remind you of the good old days or days that were different. Some of them might not be as good. I think the elimination of outhouses maybe we've improved on that category.
A lot of people says, give me the good old days. Well, they evidently didn't live in the good old days. I'll tell you what, I'll take my day to day over the good old days. My daddy had a car, always had a vehicle. Uh-huh. The problem was we didn't have money to buy fuel for it. Now everybody in the family's got a car, and they've got plenty of money to buy fuel with, and they're living high on the hog right now.
But they don't think they're high
They
on
don't
the hog.
No. But everything is so convenient right now. Back then, it was a good time, but they didn't know it. They didn't know any better.
Yeah, we worked differently, but the families were a lot closer, and people were a lot closer.
Yes, sir.
And so we miss that. But the sad commentary I heard as early as this morning is we were driving here to the radio station, and Deb said in joy, "Oh, look, gas is $2.99."
Yeah, what about that?
That is a sad commentary to our time, saying when we get excited about $2.99 gasoline. So, folks, it's been great. Next week we'll be here talking about Buck's Pocket and down in the southeast or southwest end of Bradley County. I'll get that right here. Southeast end. Yeah. Bradley County down towards the Georgia line, down and all that way, and all the way to Bonerges over to Sugar Creek and all that area.
Hughes Lake Road.
Hughes Lake. So be ready to call that. And as always, get your pictures out from under the bed, out from under the closet, out of the shoe boxes, and get someone in your family to go through and help you put the names on the back of all those. If somebody wants to call us before we get out of here. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Ron, I just want to call in and just tell you I have thoroughly enjoyed this. And I have plans, but I've been through all of this. My mother used to take newspapers and cut out a pattern. She'd look in the catalog and see a little pattern for us when we went to school. And when we'd get home in the afternoon, we'd have a new outfit.
Yeah.
And he was talking about sawing wood. I had a tree in my yard here, and this preacher wanted my old tree for wood, and he said, "I'll cut it down." And I said, "Well, okay, go ahead." So he cut it down. So I helped him cut up the logs with a cross-cut side. So I've been through all of this, and I'm telling you, I listen to you every Saturday morning, but I don't believe I've ever enjoyed one any more than this.
Well, thank you.
Well, thank you, because we weren't sure that we had stayed on the right side of everything today.
That guy right there, he's a doozy.
He is.
He is super. So, best thing, you have him back on there.
He's my backup man. He backs me up anytime we don't have anybody.
When his aunt gets better and she'll be back in, we'll have more fun.
Oh, he is just wonderful. And like I said, I enjoy this every Saturday morning.
Well, thank you. And calls like this is the reason we keep coming back, and we really appreciate it. And you stay tuned and call in anytime.
And that's what I say. Kids don't appreciate their parents. My mother passed away when I was 14-year-old. And you see, kids don't respect their parents anymore. And when I'd go home in the afternoon and I'd have a new skirt or top, I'd be thrilled to death. So I'm going to shut up because y'all are out of time.
Bye, hon. Call back anytime.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Well, that's good, isn't it?
That makes you feel good.
Folks, you've got to write down your history, your family history.
Oh, Lord.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town
Cleveland. We may be on overtime.
Yeah, this is Bernice. I know you're running overtime.
Yes, ma'am.
I have enjoyed every bit of it.
Even the smooth rocks? Even the smooth rocks?
Even the smooth rocks and the Sears Roebuck Cadillac. Debbie, happy birthday, darling.
Thank you. Thanks, Miss Bernice.
I enjoy you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sometimes when you think sometimes this turns into work, and we're having to kind of study, and so this makes it worth it all.
Good morning. Go ahead.
I'm going to third this one. The first two ladies said everything I wanted to say.
Well, good.
Thank you so much.
We're glad we made y'all all think about going to the outhouse today.
Well, I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Bye-bye.
I may not sleep tonight, though. I don't know, but, we all will remember what happened at Pearl Harbor, but we may not remember what happened in your family, down your street, where your dad worked. So it's up to you to help us save this history. You've got cell phones now that takes videos. You can make a video. You can write things down. We've had people calling here today. Should be writing books.
Yes.
And
I try to get Ron to say, we'll always remember Pearl Harbor, but will we remember your Aunt Pearl?
That's pretty good. Hey, folks.
Bye. See you next week.
Deb, tell us what's coming on next week here real quick.
We're going to have Kent Inslee coming in, and he and I grew up in the same neighborhood down on the farm, down on Keith Valley Road, and we're going to be talking about all the families that came from the Smoky Mountains down to that area and who lived on what farm, and we're going to tell tales on everybody. We're going to talk about the old bacon store and the Ogles and the Reagans and all those fine folks. So you guys tune in.
Did they make any moonshine down around all them creeks?
I think they made. We used to be down around the creek, and my daddy say, "Look at that foam on that water. That Ost Maples is making moonshine again."
Hey, folks, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.